So I know I shared the other day about Claude Code and Figma launching their MCP kind of syncing and integration to be able to create a prototype in Claude um, using Claude Code and then pulling those screens into Figma and iterating on it. But I've also been playing around with this Figma Console MCP that I think I've shared with some of you guys from South Left. TJ Petre is the one who created this. And what this does is like it can scan your entire code base as well. So it's not only like creating a prototype and pulling those screens into Figma, but it's also heavily scanning through your entire code base and making decisions based on that in Figma. And so I was like, challenge I've been having lately is like there's always some disconnect between what's in Figma, in my Figma design system, versus what ends up in production. And code base is not ever always mapped and updated with Figma or vice versa. Um, if I jump into Figma, in my design system library, I have primitives, I have components. In my primitives library, I have things broken down by colors, typography, etc. Can open my variables, and I have primitives, all my colors, semantics. These get like on the semantic side of things, they get a little carried away and disconnected from what's in production. This is intended to be more aspirational. I was just talking with someone the other day about the like how many variables that are in here that even I don't use. You know, a lot of the ones that I do use are color text primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary, but a lot of these kind of like in between I don't use very often. I do have a colors page with this like broken down, and this is like very heavily inspired by uh, Jordan Hughes and Untitled UI's library. Like this is a lot of the like kind of same framework that there is in that system. But I just haven't adopted or implemented a lot of these tokens or variables. So my whole goal, kind of going back to this Figma Console MCP, was all right. Let me figure out how to pull this in and not only use Claude chat mode to be like make these changes or updates or add these things to my Figma file, but let's use code mode um, to connect to our code base, scan everything in there, and then basically create this new design system from scratch that maps exactly to our code base. And so that's what I did. I had to kind of like get the plugin installed and wanted to make sure that it was communicating with my Figma file, and ultimately it did. And so then I gave it the instruction of let's create a design system in this brand new file on this brand new page using variables to organize colors, primitives, and semantics. Let's use textiles for our text stack, and inside each textile should reference primitive variables for font family, font weight, font size, line height, letter spacing. Don't hallucinate anything. We should match exactly what's in our code base. And so Claude Code ended up going on a deep dive and into our code base and scanning every single file, heading CSS, text CSS, everywhere there was text and colors kind of defined, and identified all of the primitive and semantic variables, and it created those. And so then it kind of like outlined how it created them, the naming convention, and all the notes for variable collections, textiles, and in theory, and I haven't verified this or validated and make sure it does check, but because it scanned our entire code base, it should match exactly. And so jumping into Figma, into my new file, you can see that here I am in Untitled, page 1. There's nothing on the canvas, no layers, no pages, no additional pages. There's nothing visual here. It's just the like architecture and infrastructure of the design system from a variable standpoint. So if I open my variables, we can see here that it added those collections, color primitives, color semantics, and typography. And these are all primitives and semantics. So primitives, and I know that this is true because our developers haven't gone through and added every single stop for every single palette. They have added what they needed when they need it. And so in this case, our neutral palette has every single color from 50 to 950. And then red doesn't have every single color from 50 to 950. It's missing 1, 2, 3, and 400. It's got 50, 500, 600, 700, 800, and 900. Some color palettes use more. And so that's fine. What I love about this is that this is matching more closely with what's in our code base. And so if we ever want to kind of go through and add 100 and 200, we can, explore that and get those added. But for now, like at least this matches more closely. On the semantic side of things, we have action, default hover, text, heading, secondary, quaternary, body. So it's kind of like using a hybrid of like our old system, heading and body, but then we at some point started adding in secondary and quaternary, which follows more of that like hierarchical primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary. So this is really cool. I love that from here, I can work more closely with the devs to update these naming conventions to make sure that it is kind of like more well structured. We got 9, 7, 5, 6. We could rearrange this. Quaternary goes below body, just from a hierarchical standpoint. Heading could get renamed to primary. Body could get renamed to tertiary. Things like that. Then also, obviously, like these are mapping directly to primitives. We have light mode and dark mode. And again, like this is all being pulled from our code base. And so this is exactly how it shows up in our code base. And if we see something that is broken in production, we can come here, update it here. We can update it in production. And this begins to sync and communicate with each other. Ideally, like if I update it here, it would automatically update in production, or if I update it in production, it would automatically update it here. And so I need to work through that and figure out if that's a possibility. But Figma is still kind of largely kind of detached from production and code base. And then typography. This is exactly as I explicitly stated. We have variables for typography for font family, size, weight. These are all like primitive level values. And then if I close my variables and look in the textiles section, we have our H1 through H6. H1 has a bold version and a medium version. I'm not sure why H1 and H2 are both the same size, but just different weight. I don't think I ever use H2 in any of my designs. I always use H1. So that's something that we could figure out. But then also something that I noticed here is, yes, there are variables applied to font family, great. Font size, line height, and letter spacing, but it did not apply a variable to the font weight. So I'm not sure why that is. I could obviously manually apply a variable here, or I can go into Claude Code and say, we missed this. Let's make sure to get those added as well. Obviously, you can see how like impactful and powerful this is, and I'm really excited to continue digging into this deeper.